Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I'm Julianne and this is all about my life living in Seoul, South Korea. Today I'm going to be doing a question and answer. I've been getting a lot of questions in my DMs, then on my Instagram story and here on YouTube, so I figured I'd just put them all together and answer them this way. And before we start, if you guys have any video ideas or anything you guys would like me to show you or talk about, please write it down below and don't forget to subscribe. And let's get started. All right, the first question is, what is your biggest adjustment, good or bad? I would say, honestly, the biggest adjustment to moving overseas and living in Korea is just dealing with possibly being lonely. When I first moved here, I moved here with Kyla and I was working with 8 different co-workers and I had such a good group of friends, and then Rachel came a few months later. I just felt like I was on top of the world. I was like, I have a great job, I have good friends, I'm living the life that I want to live. And then as you're here longer, people leave, they go home, your circle of friends change, and my job changed as well. And I've never really told you guys like much detail about my job now, but I'm actually the only foreign teacher at my school besides one other teacher that works part-time, but I never see him. I think I maybe see him once a week. I am the only teacher that teaches kindergarten and elementary at my school. So I basically go to work, talk to kids, and then the other times I'm just sitting in my office. I sit in my office for like 4 or 5 hours out of the day and just sit on my laptop. I'm not talking to anybody. So it can be really lonely. So then moving to Seoul, getting a new job and coming home to an empty apartment every day, it was just very lonely. And I just didn't think that I was ever gonna be lonely because I am a very outgoing person, and I just didn't think that I was gonna be somebody that would experience like loneliness, and I did, and that was really hard. But the best way that I got through it is just voicing to my friends like, hey, I am super lonely and I need to start doing things during the week because I am by myself at work, and then I come home to an empty apartment, and doing that 5 days a week and like living for the weekend is just not something I could do anymore. So that was the biggest adjustment, but also it like has its cons, but also has its pros. Like when I go to work and I stop at the grocery store and then I make myself dinner and then I clean my house and I put on SVU and I'm just looking at my view outside and I'm like, holy cow, I'm living by myself in Seoul. Like I completely just created a life for myself here. I made new friends here that I didn't have back home. I'm living in a beautiful apartment. I have a job that I love. Like, it's such a good feeling to feel like I've created a whole new life for myself. So yeah, the biggest adjustment is just moving here and getting your rhythm and trying to like defeat that loneliness, but also it's such a rewarding thing at the same time. Question number 2, and this is actually a really good question. How do you find a good recruiter? So if you guys refer back to my old video about finding a job in Korea, me and Kyla talked about putting our resume on Dave's ESL cafe, and you get so many recruiters that will message you. We had maybe like 6 recruiters at one time trying to find us jobs, and it's really hard to find a good recruiter because a lot of them will give you the like chain schools here that typically don't always have the best reputation, or they're giving you jobs that are not meeting any of your requirements and they're just not listening to you. You have to remember, obviously respectfully do this, you have to remember that these recruiters make money only if you get placed. So if you feel like a recruiter is not listening to you at all, tell them, hi, I'm telling you this is my minimum salary, this is the location I want to be in. Obviously locations, you have to be a little flexible at times, but if they're really not meeting your needs, like I remember I was telling a recruiter I want to be in Seoul, he kept sending me Busan, and I was like, hi, you're not listening to my requirements, and like please do not send me any jobs unless they are for Seoul. I am not looking to be placed in Busan. And after I actually was like kind of assertive with him, he started sending me the jobs that I actually wanted, and I was like, you've been sitting on these jobs, like why have you not told me about these jobs? You can tell if a recruiter is good if I am doing interviews and I'm like concerned about things, just kind of how they respond. I've had so many people give me jobs and I can just tell that they're not good, but I would interview anyways, and I'm just like, oh no, I'm really not feeling well. And if they're really trying to pressure you into the job, I've just stopped talking to recruiters based off of that. The thing is, there are so many recruiters. There are so many recruiters, and it does take a bit to find a good one that you feel like you can really trust and like they're not trying to trick you. I had so many recruiters like, yes, this is such a good job. This is such a good job. And all the reviews on Glassdoor were talking about how awful the school was. When I talked to teachers at the school, they were saying it was so awful. And I'm like, why are you trying to root so hard for the school? Like, I know that this is how you make your money, but you obviously want a recruiter that feels like they respect you and your needs. So really just kind of trust your gut with that. And I don't know, it's a trial and error. I wish there was like a perfect way to like find the perfect recruiter right off the bat, but you're gonna go through a bunch that aren't meeting your needs, aren't really putting an effort to find you a job that you want. But you will find good recruiters that listen to you, put your needs first, and actually want you to enjoy your job, and they want you to enjoy your time in South Korea. And I promise you will find a recruiter like that. It just takes a little bit of time. Another question that is a really good question is, how do you know if a job is good for you? How can you sense if a job is a good job? And this is kind of hard because obviously a job can seem amazing on paper. They meet all your requirements, but the people who work there could be miserable. Like, who knows? You don't really know what happens inside a school. So the best advice for this is to talk to somebody at that school. If a school tells you, no, you don't need to contact anybody that works here, like, we already told you everything in the interview, red flag for me personally. I'm like, okay, the interview's done, this conversation's done, I'm no longer trying to get a job at your school. I really like talking to people that work at the school because they're more likely going to tell you what's happening. But with this, it's a bit tricky because there are a lot of defamation laws here, and a lot of people are scared to speak up about their school because they don't want what they say to get back at their school. So it can be tricky. So my advice is, I personally was FaceTiming people, or I would get their personal phone number. Some schools would give me the person's email, and emailing is like okay, but sometimes the email would be like the school's email, the @ would be the school's email. So I'm like, what if the school has like access to that? I don't want them to feel like they can't really tell me what's going on. And so I always suggest FaceTime or texting, because then this way that's kind of a conversation that's between you and that person, and the school is not going to be able to kind of get a hold of that conversation, which sounds really dramatic, but I don't know, it can be kind of really scary to speak about your actual feelings towards the school, especially if you're still in a contract with that school and you don't want to like end on bad terms. You just kind of want to finish out peacefully. So yeah, my best advice would be to ask to FaceTime or text them. Emailing, stuff like that is fine as well. But also, if you do FaceTime or Skype, make sure it's not during their school hours. I once had a school tell me like, oh, well, they can FaceTime you during their prep time, which I do understand. Like, why would this random person want to take time out of their life to like help this other stranger that might be coming to take their job? Like, they might not want to spend their free time doing that, and I totally understand that. But interviewing, or not interviewing, but talking with a teacher while they're in a teacher's office and probably surrounded by coworkers and other people can hear what they're saying, they're probably not going to be super upfront with you. I think the best thing to ask them too is, how is the management? Do they feel supported? What happens with COVID? Because some schools will tell you, oh, we support you in COVID, blah, 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 blah. And then you find out that teachers were not getting paid during COVID, or they're getting paid part-time. So all of that can sometimes, you know, not always be super truthful. And just ask them like how they really feel. Like, do they feel burned out? How, like, what does their daily schedule look like? Do they feel like they have breaks during the day? And I think, especially through FaceTime, you can really tell how a person's feeling because their face will show it. Obviously, during text message, you can be like, oh yeah, I absolutely love it. Like, yeah, it's sometimes stressful, but the tone can be completely different than if you're talking to that person face to face or virtually. You guys get what I'm saying. So yeah, I will also drop some more questions that I think are important to ask during that conversation. I will put them down in the comments. Another really good question is, how do you get placed with a friend? So if you guys watch my channel way back before. You guys know that I was here with my friend Kyla. We both were just really straight off the bat with our recruiters, and we told them like, hey, there's two of us, we both have our teaching degrees, we would like to get a job placed at the same school. At first we were saying same school, and then we're like, oh, same city. And honestly, I'm so glad that we found a job now at the same school, because I've realized after being here, you can be placed in the same city or like the same area, but you really can kind of be so far away from each other. So I'm glad that we like really stayed with the same school. But yeah, you just have to tell the recruiters, there's so many jobs that are hiring like 5 people at a time or 3 people at a time, or there's also people that will hire couples, and you don't obviously have to be a real couple. They're just saying like they'll hire 2 people. So yeah, it's actually easy to like communicate that, and it is kind of easy to find a job, but obviously it would probably be easier if it was just one of you guys. But there are lots of schools, especially if you're hiring for like to start in August or February when the main hiring periods are, it'll be really easy for you guys to find a job that has multiple job openings. You just have to be a little bit patient, and some recruiters will tell you, no, there's no way. We actually did have a recruiter tell us like, oh, Kyla, you should just do this without Julianne, like take this job. Oh, Julianne, like forget about Kyla, just take this job. They were like, the one recruiter was, we were going back and telling each other what the recruiter was saying to us, and the recruiter was telling both of us like, hey, just ditch your friend and take this job, ditch your friend and take this job. So obviously don't talk to recruiters like that anymore. We no longer talk to him after that. But yeah, it's possible. Some recruiters will say it's really hard, but it's definitely not impossible, again, especially during August and February, the main hiring times. Question is pretty good. But again, I have to watch what I say in these situations. Do I have a Hagwon horror story? I don't personally have a Hagwon horror story. I definitely like the school that I work at now better than my last school, but I wouldn't say that my last school was like the worst of the worst. I think the biggest thing about my last school that I didn't like, if I'm just listing cons, would be there's a lot of changes with the books. I would sometimes feel really supported, other times not feel really supported. During COVID, I understand with Hagwons it's hard because their money comes from the parents, but sometimes if you had COVID or you were sick or you had to get tested so you couldn't go to school, you didn't get paid. If they shut down for COVID, you didn't get paid. It was like you can take 2 days off of your summer vacation or 2 days off of your winter vacation, or you don't get paid. And I understand like the financial aspect and stuff of that, but at the same time, this is your livelihood. This is how you are affording to live in this country. You legally cannot have a side job as a teacher on an E2 visa. So when you're not getting paid and it's like really craziness with COVID, it was definitely kind of stressful at times, and I do understand like COVID is a hard time. But yeah, my last school, it was nothing major. There's just sometimes drama, some things that would happen that in America would be seen as like very unprofessional and shouldn't have happened. And yeah, that's all I'm probably gonna say about that. But I do really love my job now. I am very grateful, and I was able to learn a lot from my first job and to kind of figure out like what my new requirements were for my second job. This next question, I will be honest, I am not 100% sure about. I mean, I think that I'm pretty sure about it, but who knows? It's about TESOL and TEFL. Do you need to have a TESOL and TEFL course? From my understanding, you need to have some sort of certification in TEFL or TESOL. So they're basically the same thing, different names. But you can do like an online certification. I know all my friends that have come here, they had to do online courses. I didn't have to, only because I do have my degree in teaching. So when I was applying for a job, this was never really a conversation that I needed to have. But from all my friends that are teaching here in Korea, they all have TESOL certifications. So unless there might be like a few jobs that hire you without, I really don't think it's possible. I think you do need to have some sort of TESOL or TEFL. And also people have asked me if they really need their bachelor's degree. you 100% need your bachelor's degree. You're not going to get a job without one, or at least a teaching job. You need to get your degree apostilled and everything before you come here, as like proof that your degree is real and it's a real diploma. So that is very important and 100% a requirement. This next question is actually quite hard to answer because it could vary in so many different ways. Is Seoul expensive? I am pretty sure, don't quote me, that Seoul is like one of the top 10 cities, like most expensive cities, like cost of living and stuff like that. As a teacher here, you do get your housing paid for, you get like half your insurance paid for. That's all very nice, and depending on what apartment you live in, like your utility bills might be very cheap, might be kind of expensive, but this really depends on your lifestyle. If you are gonna drink soju every day and always take public transportation, and you're only gonna eat at Korean restaurants, or you're gonna make food for yourself, Seoul's gonna be pretty cheap for you. If you like to take taxis sometimes, and you wanna go out to bars, and you wanna go out to eat a lot, and you like to shop a lot, and you always wanna be doing like certain attractions, like going to like Lotte World, or going on the tower, and doing more activities that aren't free, obviously Seoul's gonna be pretty expensive. I would say it's like New York City. That's what I would relate it to. The cost of living and stuff like that. It can be very expensive. There's obviously ways it can be very cheap, but I don't know, it really depends on lifestyle. I will do a vlog soon, what I spend in a week or what I spend in a weekend. Obviously, again, you guys will be able to watch it and see like, oh, but I probably wouldn't do this, or oh, I would do that. So yeah, that's something I should factor in. Especially cafes. I love going to cafes. That's more expensive than if I just make coffee at home or go to a CU and get coffee. So really it varies so much, but I would say for the most part, I would relate it to New York City, and I would say Seoul can be quite expensive. The next question is basically about communication, not verbally, but through our phones. How do you communicate with people back home? It looks like this one user was talking about how WhatsApp doesn't work. I don't know about WhatsApp because I've never used it. Actually, ironically, my friend asked me to download WhatsApp today, but I haven't tried yet. But everyone uses Kakao here, or I use iMessaging because all my family and friends here have iPhones. So we just use iMessaging back and forth. But Kakao you can use whether you're in America or anywhere. So you can just ask your family members to download Kakao, and they just attach their phone number to that, and it's basically just like WhatsApp. It's just a South Korea version of it. Next question, and probably my favorite question, is have you met BTS? No, I wish, but I did go to the Billie Eilish concert, and RM and J-Hope were underneath me. So basically we run in the same circle, and I'm expecting them to text me any day now. I really wish, but no, guys, I actually get so many DMs, and it's usually from like very cute, like little like teenage girls who think that I really do see BTS. I'm not saying this person who asked the question thinks this, but I've gotten a lot of DMs lately like, you live in Seoul, so you see BTS? No. If I'm being honest, you're not gonna run into your bias living in Seoul. You're not gonna like be walking to school one day and just see your bias like riding his bike. It's probably not gonna happen. My friends do live by JYP, so like Tori and Rachel have seen Stray Kids all the time like outside, but you're not gonna run into Jimin. I wish I could just go to a cafe and see Jimin. I will say though, there are some like K-pop and like celebrity people that I've seen like on Instagram, and I'm like, oh wow, like they're taking a picture here and we go there all the time. And so maybe I have passed by like famous people or K-pop idols, stuff like that, and just not realize. I will be honest, I love BTS, but they are probably the only group that I've put really time into getting to know the members. I'm not like a huge with the other K-pop groups. I don't know all the members and like know all of them, if I'm being honest. So I possibly could have been in the same room as one of them, and I just don't know. I know that me and Rachel went to a flea market the other day or the other week, and at one point everybody was like kind of commotion and people are taking pictures with this one guy, but I have no idea who he was. But if I'm being honest and truthful, you're not just gonna like be walking one day and see RM. And I'm not saying that everybody like thinks this about Korea, but I'm just doing this because I have gotten DMs that people think that because I live in Seoul, I see famous people all the time, and I don't. So I'm sorry. Those are all the questions I'm going to do for today. Again, if you guys have any video ideas that you want me to do, things you want me to show you or talk about, drop it down below. And if you do have any more questions, if I get a lot of more questions, I'll do another question and answer like this maybe next month or in 2 months. But thank you so much for watching. Again, please like this video and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.